Hi, this is Donna. Welcome to DD Paper Crafts. In today's video, we're going to be making this train. The train consists of a box on the top here, which is 2.5 by 3 by 3 inches. We have a base box which opens at the back, and this is 6 inches by 3 inches by 1 inch. Then we have this box at the front, which is 3 3/8 by 2 by 2 at its highest point. The box has been inspired by a couple of images which I saw on Pinterest, so let me show you how I put this one together. We're going to start with the base box, and this is made up of one piece which is 6 by 3, and the only thing you need to do to this, if it's your preference, is to add a finger notch. The second piece for the base box is 6 inches by 9 inches. Along the 6-inch side, score at half, 1.5, 4.5 and 5.5. Along the long side, score at half, 1.5, 7.5 and 8.5. Leave your piece in the scoreboard. We're going to put the marking in for the slot that the tab on the front box is going to slot into. Line your ruler up with the 2-inch mark down the left-hand side. Make sure your ruler is running horizontally. We're going to make our slot mark between 5.25 and 6.25 inches, like so. I'm going to cut the slot first. It doesn't matter what order you do this in. So you might prefer to fold and burnish and then cut your slot. There's no right or wrong order. What you do want to do is you want to cut a slot rather than a slit. So I'm going to run my craft knife along the mark that I've made, like so, and then put my ruler slightly below it and score another line, and then put my ruler slightly above it. And if anything, you want your slot to be slightly longer than the 1-inch length so that the tab is going to fit in, because it's going to be difficult to extend the slot once the box is put together, and that is slightly over 1 inch, so I'm happy with that. Now we can fold and burnish. The slot is going to sit towards the front of the base box, and I want my box to open from the back of the train, as it were. So therefore this end here is going to be the end that has the lid and the flap, and this end here will be the closed end. So just think about whether you want your box to open from the front or the back, and then just cut your ends accordingly. Whichever is going to be your opening end, we're going to cut up the second vertical score line through the first horizontal up to the second horizontal, like so, and then rotate and completely remove that section. Do the same on the opposite side, so I'm moving along. So this is our lid and our lid flap. I'm going to round off the corners, that's just my preference. Rotate the piece. We're now going to work on what would be your closed end. Move along to the second vertical score line and cut up to the first horizontal. Rotate, remove that section, like so. Move to the score line to the left. We're going to cut through the first horizontal, up to the second horizontal, rotate and remove that rectangle. So this is the left hand side. We're going to do the same on the right hand side. Take a wedge from the end of the glue tabs. Take a wedge from the corner glue tabs. Okay, let's start to create our box. Add glue onto the corner tabs, all that around. Make sure you get a nice neat corner. Do the same this side. Then we're going to fold these tabs in, add our adhesive onto these glue tabs, and then sit 6 by 3 inch piece on top. I'm going to just fold the flap back, get everything lined up, and then I can go in with my ruler or my score tool and just burnish down the tabs. So this is our base box, and that's going to open for me at the back end of the train. We'll now make the box which sits at the back. This box is going to just consist of the sides and then the glue tabs to sit that box on top of this box. It doesn't actually have a base. It doesn't need to have a base. If you want to cut a base, then you obviously can and put one in. For this, you'll need 2 pieces, and they are 6 by 3.5. Along the 6 inch side, score at 2.5 and 5.5. And on the short side, score at half. Fold and burnish along all of the score lines on both pieces. We're going to remove the bottom right hand square like so. Cut up the score line to separate the glue tabs, and just take a wedge from the ends of each of these. We're going to join our piece together, add glue to the second, fold this side over, bring over this side and complete our box. Fold down your tabs. If you want to add a base on, you can. You'd need a piece which was 3 by 2.5. So that's going to sit on there like so. Just hold that so that it squares off along the sides and along the back. So I'm happy with that. I'm going to put a lid on my box. Now you could leave it unlidded. Mine is going to have a slight arch to it. I've got a piece of cardstock which is 3.5 by 3 inches, and along the 3.5 inch side I've got my ruler lined up with the 1/4 inch notch, and I'm going to lightly pencil from 1/4 inch down to 2 3/4. So it's 1/4 inch away from the left, 1/4 inch away from the top, and it finishes 1/4 inch away from the bottom. And I'm going to do the same at 3 3/4. So start my pencil mark at 1/4 inch and run it down to 2 3/4. You'll then need 2 pieces which are 2.5 by 3/4 inch and score at 1/2 inch on the short side. Fold and burnish along the score lines. Now before we do anything else, I'm going to take the 2 strips and just check that they're going to fit in the box. You want to be able to get the lid in and out easily. So what we're going to do is take our lid, we're going to add glue to the 1/4 inch section and sit it on the 1/4 inch line, like so. Do the same at the other end. Now you want to set that aside to dry and not do anything with it until it's dried. Once your lid is completely dry, I'm going to sit one end in, so this end is in, and gently curve the other end in, and you can see I get this arch look. We're now going to make the front box, and for this you'll need 1 piece which is 4 3/8 by 6 1/4. Along the 4 3/8 inch side, score at 1/2 inch, rotate and score at 1/2 inch. Along the long side, score at 1/2 inch, 1.5 inches, 3 1/8, 4 3/4, and 5 3/4. Rotate back to the short side, score at 1 3/4 down to the 1/2 inch score line, like so, and do the same at 2 3/4. So this is going to be our tab. Start by folding and burnishing along the long 1/2 inch score lines. Take your train piece and sit the piece that we've just scored on the space at the front, and move your piece up to the slot, and just check that your slot is long enough where the score lines for your tab means that your tab is going to fit into the slot. So if anything, when I cut here, I'm going to cut just inside the score line because my score line is very close to this end of the slot. So now is my opportunity to assess my tab and to make sure it's going to be in the right place. We can then fold and burnish the remaining score lines. Start with the 2 tab score lines in front of you and cut down those to create your tab. Rotate, remove that long section to what is to the left, and the long section which will be to the right or underneath the tab, like so. And I'm going to just quickly take this opportunity to round off those corners. We're going to remove this section and this section. So I'm going to cut straight up the score line through the first horizontal, up to the second horizontal, rotate and remove that section. Do the same on this side. Then cut up the remaining vertical score lines within the 1/2 inch, like so. Do the same on the other side. Rotate, remove that bottom left hand square, remove the bottom right hand square, take a wedge from this end, glue tab, and then I'm going to shape these glue tabs. And I might need to shape these some more once we add our end pieces into place, because as these come around to form the shape, your piece will fit better if these don't actually sit over one another. So that's our piece ready. We're now going to make the ends for the front box, and you'll need 2 pieces which are 3 inches by 3 inches. I'm going to start by drawing a line along one of the 3 inch sides at 2.5 inches. Rotate 90 degrees and do the same. Rotate 90 degrees and do the same. You want your piece in this orientation so that you've got the pencil line running along the top, the right and the bottom. And if you're using single-sided cardstock, you'll have to do one in this orientation and one the other. Or if you're using double-sided, you can do both this way, and then when it comes to the scoring, you'll just have to burnish one in one direction and one in another direction. Hopefully that'll come clear as we put the piece together. We're going to start by making a pencil line within the top 1/2 inch tab at 1 1/4 inches down to the 1/2 inch pencil line, like so. Rotate 90 degrees clockwise, so that pencil line is now over this side, and make a pencil mark at 1 1/2 inches, like so. Rotate 90 degrees clockwise again. We're going to draw a pencil line through this 1/2 inch section at the top at 3/4 inch, like so, and 2 3/4 inch, like so. We're then going to rotate 90 degrees again, pencil line through the 1/2 inch section at 1.5 inches. If you have your piece in this orientation, we're going to cut between this pencil mark here and the top of this line here. So I'll draw those in like so, and we're going to cut between this pencil line here like so. You then want to take your stylus and ruler, and we're going to score between this top here across to the end of this pencil line on the right, like so, and the same at this side on the bottom. So this is our piece, and now we want to score along this 1/2 inch line here. I'm going to cut from within the 1/2 inch section directly in line with the pencil line, and then cut that side section away. I'm then going to turn my piece around, and from the outside edge of the cardstock I'm going to line my scissors up with the pencil line and cut that side away. Rotate so we look like this. Cut up the score line we made up to the pencil line like so. Do the same on this one, cut up to the pencil line like so. So we're going to create a glue tab here and a glue tab here. We can remove this section, and I'm just going to line up with the score line but not cut into the score line, as it were, like so. Fold and burnish along the score line so we know what shape we're working with, and then we're going to create tabs into these two pieces. So I'm going to cut approximately 1/2 inch away from the score line. Shape that again. I'm going to run it as if it was extended into the score line. So that's that piece. Then we can cut approximately 1/2 inch from this one. I'm going to cut into this to shape it as if the score line were extended, and then just shape that one slightly. Remove the pencil lines. So we'll sit the side on, and then you can see whether you need to shape the tabs differently. But when you fold and burnish the tabs, you want to burnish them so that the two pieces are going to come in and face each other like so. We're now going to glue the ends on to this piece and just offer your shape up against the two tabs, and just make sure on the inside that the two tabs are not going to overlap with one another, and if necessary just reshape the tabs just to check that. I've only made one of these projects, and as you can see I have taken it apart once already. So that sits on there nicely, so that front is going to come down like so. I'll add my glue onto the base tabs, sit my box on the top and put the tab into place, form the shape of the box and sit my tab in the slot like so. I'm then going to open and lift that out of the way, and then burnish down along the side and the back glue tabs. So my box is in the right position. You can just double check whilst the glue is still drying. I'm happy with that. So that's in place, and we can now continue with our additional decoration. Here's the finished decorated box. You can see I've added pattern paper onto all of the sides and into the base. I'll give you the various sizes. For the lid, the piece is 3 1/4 by 2 3/4. For this top box, 2 pieces at 2 1/4 by 2 3/4, and 2 pieces which are 2 3/4 by 2 3/4. For the base, I have 2 pieces which are 3/4 by 2 3/4, 2 pieces which are 3/4 by 5 3/4, and then 2 pieces here, and these were 3/8 by 3 1/4. For the top box section, I have 2 pieces which were 3 1/4 by 3/4, and 2 pieces which were 3 1/4 by 1 3/8. In order to get the shape at the front, I actually turned the box upside down on a piece of scrap with the edge of my paper lined up with this edge here, and I drew around the outer edge. I then took approximately 1/16 to 1/8 off of all of the sides and then just laid it on to make sure I was happy with the look. The wheels were just cut from simple circle dies. I'll give the measurements in case anyone wants to replicate. The largest wheels, the dies were 1 3/8 and 1 1/8. The smaller wheels, they are 1 1/8 and 3/4 of an inch and 1/2 inch circles in the middle, and these strips were just 1/4 inch wide, and then I cut them to length once I'd sat the wheels on and then added the smaller circles on the top. I actually used my mat, the grid lines on my mat, to help me when I was lining up the wheels onto the base. Made sure that the bottom of each of the circles was on the same grid line on the mat, and that just made sure now that when the box sits upright it actually doesn't have a wobble to it. So there we have today's project. I hope you've enjoyed today's video. If you haven't done so already, please consider subscribing to the channel, and until next time, thanks for watching.